Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Let's hop in. Um, for the accountability section today, I'm starting late. Again, my sleep schedule of doing things in the morning didn't really work. I could have streamed earlier in this morning and I would have just been falling asleep the whole time, so I didn't want to do that. Over the course of yesterday, I was working on the automation and scheduling videos, to the automation to schedule videos, which um, for like the daily YouTube shorts videos, since there isn't a number at the end of the title and the input box for the title when uploading videos is just this oddly different type of input box that I can't directly access with the macro. Uh, but because there isn't a number that needs to increment and change, then the entire process of uploading YouTube dailies is automatic. Now, inherently, what this is going to do, and it's almost certainly the right move anyways, is to just get further and further ahead. I have nearly a month now of daily PC games scheduled, and I don't feel like there's a huge need to double up or try to figure out a way to double up that and not just go further and further ahead. In fact, there is a decent argument, as I am just getting worse and worse about making content, to replace the 10 a.m. pre-recorded footage with just YouTube shorts and make even less content and air on my channel, which that's certainly what the algorithm would like, and that's certainly what would probably get me better views and more um, and more subscribers. So there's definitely a thought there, and that thought is certainly compounding with the fact that all of yesterday I really just have failed to uh, to get started on playing a new game, and I desperately need to play a new game. I have basically September empty, so even if I was going to make some changes after the Halloween month, which would be the right point to do that, then I still need to make a month worth of footage for at least one time slot, probably two. I guess there is a new selection pack here with this update, and Valiant Wings is going away. There is a Duelist Cup event that will take place on the 9th through the 21st, which seems to be different from a festival, like an actual tournament. Version updates, for the new update, Onward, the game will automatically update upon launch from Steam users. Thanks for your patience in waiting for automatic updates. That didn't make that makes a lot of sense that Steam's update service would update the Steam version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now clearly the mobile version of the game will still um, probably use its own internal update version, um, although I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see like the Android and iOS versions have slight updates for their base software, but still downloading after you launch, because there is some level of limitation as far as how big of a an app can be in at least the Google Play Store, if I as I vaguely recall. Hmm. Hmm. See. Notable add-ons here. They have casual matches now, card activation animations during duel, summoning effect for special summoning, a button to the card details screen that allows the user to check The original content of the card that has had its status changed. Added setting to only show dual animations the first time. Added a feature to activate effects and summon monsters by dragging the command button to the field. Example, when special summoning monster, you can perform a special summon by dragging the command button to a specific battle position. That should be interesting. Add a switch and hold option to the activation confirmation settings. You can change this and then dual tab, which maybe that is something that might speed things up. More features, certainly, but some of these features almost certainly you're going to end up not even noticing visually. New dual mode casual mode getting its own special notice. Then we have a maintenance notice. It's still too many notices. Like, nobody really wants to come out here. An issue notice as far as bugs. Too many notices, certainly, to start with. Let's go to the game settings here. Alright, you will automatically receive an activation confirmation for the timing of any set card. So hold their auto is by default, then hold 1, hold 2, hold 3, switch and hold. So let's see what switch and hold does. A button to switch the activation confirmation settings will be displayed on the dual screen. Furthermore, while holding left click on the mouse, you'll be asked to confirm an activation. While holding right click, you will not be asked to confirm. So that gives you something. Still only automatic and manual as far as you can now change the order which things can be activated between you. Card description being shown when you play. We'll turn that on. Summon cut-ins, one time only. Card effects, one time only. Special summons, one time only. And I doubt there's anything special here where you need to change with audience and replays. Alright, well, that's something. Now, inherently, I'm kind of beating around the bush because if there's new cards, I don't probably have quite as much gems and crystals as I would like. Yeah. We are barely there as far as buying gems and crystals. So if this is the new one, I've either engaged with this already or I have just such a high amount. You can see I have like 3 or 4s for a lot of these cards. It would not make a lot of sense to open that selection pack up. That's what it said, selection pack, even though they're labeling this as a normal pack. It would make slightly more sense, I think, probably to open this pack up, and there's no good reason for that too. See, these are labeled as selection packs, but then they're under the category of normal packs, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So I guess that does point out that I have already engaged with the new cards, so I'm not over a barrel as far as that. Good. I don't need to open any packs. What milestone did I hit? Just a new login? Interesting. Alright, so yeah, new casual match. If you're gonna play casual match, you can just play it and test out decks, which desperately the game needed that. Plus, that drains ranked players from that don't really want to play ranked to casual. So now ranked playing should be a little bit more difficult and more serious, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, I'm sure. But there was almost certainly a decent number of people that that did not really want to engage with ranked play, that were just losing and just trying to get the dailies done at most, but weren't really taking it as seriously. Not that I'm particularly taking it seriously. You can see now, with the exception of Duel and Solo mode here, the descriptions of all these daily quests now seem to not include the phrase ranked play. So if you are just trying to get a specific daily quest done quickly, you could potentially have a custom deck to destroy monsters, draw a card, activate spells, activate traps, and focus on that. Now, they really don't give you enough daily quests to justify doing that. And you really couldn't even pile up enough daily quests to justify doing that. Now, you could get some of the lifetime quests done by doing that if you just wanted to try and speed run all the lifetime quests, but inherently, even doing the lifetime quests while not playing ranked may not increase your duelist level, so you wouldn't get all the duelist quests done either, or all the lifetime quests done. But yeah, I definitely would say ranked just got harder, not easier. On top of, well, on top of not starting any new game that I desperately need to start on YouTube for pre-recorded footage, I have now two Tuya/Smart Life, two home automation things that are gonna have to be sent back. The door lock that I installed, Deadbolt that I installed, is just not working. I'm not getting notifications. The auto unlock is not working. And what's crazy is this is the one that's advertised the most by YouTube. I suppose there's one last trick I could try. I could just see about fully rebooting the device, because I guess the device has been up, and it could just be that problem. But yeah, I don't really believe it to be the problem with the device. I believe it to be a problem with the app. And it's not. I'm not the only one that's complained about it on Amazon's ratings and reviews, which you really, particularly for these gadgets, need to look at the ratings and reviews. And then I got this wireless doorbell SOS panic button for a Tuya Smart Life device, and immediately from day one, it is not allowed me to use it in the app, because the app says there's an update. You click update, and then it just says checking for updates and stays there. And I left it overnight. It is possible that the server is down, but I would have to just assume that this is some weird case in which the game has the product is just not being supported anymore. What in the world just happened there? I guess that's that animation. Which, if this is going to just show an animation for almost every card, that seems like that is just going to make everything really slow. Inherently, I knew from the word go that the 2 Smart Life devices were going to be a mixed bag at best. There's a weirdness to them, certainly, in being cheap Chinese products that creates that extra. Ooh, now you have a number. That's nice. It creates this extra danger around buying something that you're just gonna have to buy it and try it. And if anything, I've just gotten fairly lucky. I thought the wireless thermostat was going to have problems with its batteries just draining, and that turned out not to be the case. Also, the locator, lost my keys device, its battery seems to be draining very fast, but I also am willing to assume that the original batteries in the game, I keep calling everything a game. I assume that the original batteries actually may have been sitting on the shelf, so it's not super surprising that the tiny little coin cell original battery may die quickly. So I'm gonna have to put a new battery in it just to see. It also could just be reporting low batteries in a bad way, because it is fairly difficult, even with good circuitry, which almost certainly this thing doesn't have, that it's fairly difficult to estimate battery life. The light bulbs I got work perfectly, at least with the no WMM secondary Wi-Fi network I had to create. That's kind of the weird thing, is that amongst all of it is that I had to create this separate network, and I think that has more to do with my DDWRT custom router being slightly off standards, and that might also be why the update's not downloading, but I can't really do anything about that. This is the only way I've gotten it to work. Inherently, there is also just a longevity to these products that is in question, and that's why I bought the first Xsense Wi-Fi smoke detector a year earlier, because I wanted to know if this device was going to have the batteries die or in a year or less, or if it was going to constantly disconnect. There is a different scenario. Certainly, had the first Xsense smoke detector I bought constantly disconnected or constantly drained the batteries, then I would have never gone deeper down the 2 Smart Life home connectivity concept. Effectively, you are just at the cutting edge of things. Also, you have the issue of like Wi-Fi versus Zigbee versus Z-Wave. I would not suggest Z-Wave for anybody, but it is believable that something in a Zigbee network could go just wrong after a while, as much as it's believable that something in a Wi-Fi network could just go wrong. And you would have these devices that you are effectively assuming should work 100% of the time, and that are fairly mission critical, that they need to work 100% of the time, having a device just not work. It's the reason for that is fairly obvious on like a door lock, which is not in the Tuya system, and unfortunately, I don't think they have quite the right kind of door lock for me to get one that would potentially be in the Tuya system. There are definitely Tuya door locks, but they're more inside the building office door locks than, or they are just a different style completely. And some of that definitely comes down to the fact that these are devices mostly being sold to Asian people. Which explains why there is oddly no way to really monitor a washer dryer, because Asian people don't tend to do a lot of laundry, particularly one that would require like 240 volt sensing. Moving on though, what I did with the macro was kind of interesting. In rebuilding this spreadsheet, there has always been a complete disconnect between the comma separated values save file that the macro I use to schedule YouTube videos uses, and the Google Sheets spreadsheet that I was using to track what videos had been scheduled or not, to give me a better idea of just like what do I need to work on, because going through YouTube to try and figure out which time slot has been filled is pretty impossible. Well, in Google Sheets there is a way to import a CSV file. You have to do it manually. But then there is also a way to create a form and ask the form, ask people to submit information to the form through the form, submit answers through the form. So you could send out like a questionnaire and make custom answer spots, and then have them hit a submit button. And those answers then become a separate sheet in a collection of in what is typically referred to as a Google Sheet. The Google Sheets files effectively can have multiple sheets. They always have, but it's confusing, I suppose. So what I've was able to do is create a form and then have the macro, as it's wrapping things up, open up that form, put in the same information as saving to the CSV, and then hit the submit button, and then go on with its process of working on the next one. Now, this does create an issue, certainly, that there's going to be a lot of redundancy because it does it after every schedule. So it's going to schedule episode 1, then 2, then 3. Actually, it won't schedule episode 1 because I always have to manually schedule episode 1 as a base template. So it will schedule episode 2, then 3, 4, 5, all the way to the last number. When for the Google spreadsheet, all I really would want was episode 1 and then the last episode. I want to know when something starts and when something stops. And there might be a better way to automate that, although I imagine it would be fairly hard to try and group things together and figure out what the last number is, since the last number will be a different number all the time. It'd be fairly easy to find all the number ones. But it definitely gets me a lot further, and then I can just go and delete the rows of the things in between, and I'll change number 2 to be number 1 in the day before. So it's still a little bit of manual work, but it's a lot less manual work, and it keeps the data in sync a lot faster. Whereas previously, when it was completely disconnected, I was just copying and pasting that data manually and spending, I was probably spending a few hours, but honestly for me, any project I do in one day, is that one project I do in that day. I'm with insomnia and just generally being unhealthy. I'm not energetic enough to do more than one, maybe two things per day, and then that day is just shot. And some of that is definitely distractions of me just watching Hulu or Netflix or something. Which, by the way, I started watching The Sandman. The Sandman is, for the most part, going over the incidences in the comic book to my vague memory and doing a fairly decent job at it. Reading The Sandman twice or watching The Sandman in a TV show version, which they seem to really have just snuck that out on Netflix when there should have been a lot more advertisement around it. Well, on Netflix seems crazy. There is certainly a danger if the ending is changed or if they try to go for a second season. That would be a problem. Am I doing that poorly? I guess I am. We may very well just fall down the rank here. I may have been better off ranking up and playing more before the updates to try and get up to platinum. But even if I had gotten up to platinum, I still need to play on the daily, so I would have fallen down anyways after the update. There's a few things that jump out, certainly, as far as the Sandman series, in that the Sandman series, Neil Gaiman had an entire DC universe, or in at least one entire DC universe to deal with. So there was a point where I believe Green Lantern and Batman showed up. I doubt they will show up in the Sandman series. They had, I think, John Constantine show up at one point, and in this case they have changed it to Joanna Constantine, but it seems to be the exact same backstory. So it does kind of feel like this might be an alternate universe of the Sandman. Lucifer Morningstar is still in charge of Hell when he gets there, which I am almost 100% certain that in the comic book, Lucifer Morningstar had already left and abandoned his role in Hell. So that's oddly different too. And the Lucifer Morningstar that they show in this version is not the Lucifer Morningstar from the Lucifer Fox show. It is a female actress playing Lucifer, which angels are kind of both genders. Anyways, but oddly, then Mazikeen looks. You could tell me that the Mazikeen shown in the Sandman series is the exact same actress that played Mazikeen in the Lucifer TV series, and I would believe you. Even though Mazikeen did look different. And then, so you have, I hate to always have to go to it, you have this slight woke changes, which at a certain point, if you thought it was going to be the best actress, may the best actress win, I could almost see the Joanna Constantine idea going by, just her being a better actor or character to play John Constantine might make some sense, but it's hard to really believe that to be the case when the actor who's played John Constantine in the Constantine ABC canceled series, and then in the Legends of DC CW series, he's really established himself as being the go-to actor to play Constantine, much more than anyone else. Plus, I think he is also the voice actor in like 3 of the he's a voice actor, I think, in a lot of the cartoons of John Constantine animated movies. So I think you might want to have just brought him back, but it does definitely seem like there is a choice there to not connect this Sandman universe to anything else. They show Death and she's a black lady instead of being animated in black and white and being fairly obviously a white lady. They show Desire, and Desire maybe looks slightly different, but I also kind of wouldn't care if Desire looked different. People are obsessed with Death as a character way more than any of the other Endless. And she doesn't have like crazy eyeball Egyptian eye tattoo on her over her eye or anything like that. She just has a small Ankh necklace like Death wore, and she's wearing basically regular clothes instead of being more of a gothic Lolita type design. Which at a certain point you can't really complain that the comic book is going to be more extreme in its fashion, and realism would be broken if she was really, if Death or Morbius were wearing quite the same things. For a Netflix series, they shied away around showing male nudity, even though they had Dream naked in the first episode for quite a while, which fine, like, but it's still rated MA, and later on you definitely have people cheating on each other and killing people and attacking people, so the nudity being censored seems odd, but not too crazy, because honestly, when you think about the Watchmen movie, the male nudity in the Watchmen movie was too extreme and should have just been changed. But yeah, it definitely is a case where you could complain about them making Death a black lady, black actress, but I don't think that's anything to actually complain about. I would say there's much better things to be happy about than to actually care that they've made some slight changes there. And in all fairness, Batman, Green Lantern, Constantine showing up, they showed up because the actor wanted them to show up. If they had completely eliminated Constantine as a character and just had somebody not named Constantine it would have been basically the same story. And if anything, I assume they're just kind of testing the idea of a Joanna Constantine spin-off series, which at a certain point, that's where, if this succeeded as a show, which everybody should watch it, I think, fairly quickly on Netflix to try and get it to succeed as a show, all you can really do is have spin-off stories or prequel stories with the side characters more than even the main character, because it is a slight spoiler towards the ending throughout the entire story. And I will just say, even for people that don't want to be spoiled in the series, the whole story is about knowing and understanding this godlike creature, Dream / Morpheus, and understanding who he is and how he thinks and how he acts, and that he's barely relatable and barely comprehensible. And when you do understand him, this slight spoiler to the ending, you realize that he doesn't change very much, or much at all, and he is kind of just stuck in being the being that he's been for like 10,000 years. And that him being trapped at the very beginning of the story, while annoying, doesn't really touch upon the longevity of his existence. So what that creates is a scenario, I'll continue here, trying not to spoil too much. It creates a scenario though where you're just not going to be able to have a sequel that matters, or where the character grows. The Sandman as a character is not really even a good main character for the Sandman series. Because of that, you're looking at an experience of somebody who's experiencing things, yes, but not really learning from them, or not growing from them. There was definitely a thought that I won't throw out there because of spoilers, where you could attempt to sabotage the narrative of the original story by changing the actions / intent of some actions, where you could try and sabotage Death as a character in particular, and make it look like she's the bad guy when she's never really depicted that way. Of course, you could kind of do that with... they may actually be doing that with Desire. I'm not sure. There's also certainly some weirdness in the Sandman series being a comic book series. Just in the fact that when you were reading these issues month to month, there was a lot more time to spend and think about those issues compared to them just being episodes and dealing with episodes that you can just watch back to back. It's fairly easy to not pay enough attention. And so I would be interested to see somebody's potential response or thought to to Sandman in the first viewing, which is something I just can't have. But yeah, I would definitely recommend everybody stick through it, watch it. If you don't like the first couple episodes, the story the focus kind of changes. You can definitely tell that there was a goal set in the first 3 issues, and then that goal kind of goes away after the first 3 issues, and then you start jumping into different arcs. The Sandman as a comic book series is really not long enough to have multiple arcs, but it does, certainly. There's a lot of side stories. A lot of things you would call filler stories and anything else, but for the Sandman, that's kind of how it has to be depicted, because you just can't follow Morpheus and Dream as the main character. Alone. Been talking for 40 minutes. I don't know if I have too much more to say. I have more things I need to do over the weekend. Still have one rocking bench I need to put together, and whatever I saved on the rocking bench I may very well lose in buying cushions for the rocking bench, because the cushions, looking on Amazon, I got the benches for $100, and buying one cushion is going to be like $60, so slight savings, but not as much. But I can't completely say they don't need cushions either. That's like, if you really are going to sit on them and use them, you're going to want some cushions. And then if they're outside, which that's the idea eventually, they need to be waterproof cushions. So yeah, let's start going through video game news. Like, I don't want this stream to end up going late into the evening. I should once again point out that these daily YouTube shorts are working. Like, there's really no denying it. These shorts are working fairly well. Oh, I played wrong there. I should have activated this, tossed that, then tossed that. Oh well, we can still live with that. They are getting a lot of views, and I got a new subscriber today, so there's some level in which maybe this will work. Although, inherently, my pessimism tells me that if YouTube Shorts starts becoming this really successful thing where content creators start getting subscribers, and even in my case where that can convert into getting enough watch time to still get on the YouTube Partner Program, I can't help but suspect that they're just going to pull the rug out from under me at some other point and say, nope, you still can't get into the YouTube Partner Program because of we've raised the limits on it. Inherently, they should have never raised the limits as high as they did. And now, I think many new content creators, or even low tier content creators like me, stand zero chance of getting 1,000 subscribers. And that is slowly, I'm sure, widening the gap between people that people that are successful on YouTube and people that aren't successful on YouTube. Okay. Because I didn't do what I was going to do before, this lets me do this. Then I can now destroy this. and this. Targeting any monster in my graveyard is going to be a problem. But whatever. Let's see if we can change the dual things. Summon cut-ins. Let's turn off card effects. See, seemingly I can't turn the card effects off, so the only thing I could really do to save time here would be to turn off special summoning animations, which I can do that. Okay. Then activate this. Wait for him to react. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle has an article here. Nintendo will not be announcing new hardware this year, which halfway through the year. That's not super surprising. Arguably, they did announce new variants of their hardware with a Splatoon special version of the Nintendo Switch. So I don't feel like that is 100% fully accurate. I don't think this is gonna work. Oh, it did work. Interesting. Nope, didn't work. Alright, well. It leaves me with nothing, but that should be fine. Yeah. It would be silly for Nintendo to announce new hardware this Christmas season. I could see January, February coming around and them announcing new hardware. But with the chip shortage still being a thing, although arguably I've heard that Steam and Valve hasn't really been affected as much by the chip shortage. But yeah, I assume the chip shortage is still a thing, so yeah, I could see in February maybe bringing out a upgraded thing, but I don't even really know what that upgraded thing would be as far as the Nintendo Switch. It's got to be effectively a whole new version of the Switch with like twice the RAM, twice the CPU. It's going to feel very much like a cell phone upgrade, I imagine. I don't think they're coming out with a new console with new controllers or anything like that. If they are going to do something like that, I wouldn't be surprised if it tries to like go heavily into something crazy like VR, despite the fact that VR has not really succeeded in any real measure. But yeah, just they can't really go higher resolution on the screens because that would be somewhat crazy. They can go more RAM, more storage space. That's kind of it. They can say here's a revision with less Joy-Con drift, or here's some that are Joy-Con drift proof, but then they'd have to admit Joy-Con drift was an actual thing, and I don't think they want to do that. Well, that screwed me. Well, I am in trouble now. Yeah. Really, the only thing I think Nintendo could do is announce something that would be like the Wii U, in the sense that it's some kind of home dock that's a lot more powerful, but you can control the Joy-Cons and the Switch and use the Switch screen if you want. And it is just a separate thing. Now that there's been a couple of years of people knowing that Switches can work on their own. But like a Switch Pro wired to a TV console is going to feel kind of like a backstep, and I just don't think they have the technology there, nor have they really worked to get their technology to that point where it would make sense to try and sell what is effectively going to try and compete with an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 Pro. So they're stuck in this pit where it's going to be very difficult for whatever they announce, whenever they announce something. The Multiversus Season 1 and Morty have been delayed. So we're already seeing delays in what I thought was an open beta of a fighting game. Maybe it wasn't actually an open beta. Maybe they were just rushing. Says the first season was due to launch August 9th. Hasn't been delayed. Held back to an unconfirmed date. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Wave 2 DLC release time has been confirmed, which actual time August 4th at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, whatever that is. A new Hogwarts Legacy cutscene has been shared during a tech event, which, yeah. Again, I don't think I care quite enough about Hogwarts Legacy to watch any more advertisement around it. I'll be interested in seeing what it is when it's all said and done, but until then, I'm happy enough to be done with it. Again, I put this in the wrong place fairly often. Really shouldn't be putting anything in the middle. Either to the left or to the right. Take your pick, but never in the middle. Back 4 Blood's Children of the Worm DLC is coming this month, which... Back 4 Blood... I don't even really remember what Back 4 Blood is. Back 4 Blood was basically the two creators that worked on Left 4 Dead, implying that all the creators that worked for Left 4 Dead made Back 4 Blood, and then nobody was really particularly happy with Back 4 Blood. Now that I think about it, there was about 30 other names, I would estimate, of people who also worked on Left 4 Dead 2 that did not work on Back 4 Blood. Which inherently, I think that is probably the case anytime they say the creators of a game moved on to make this spiritual sequel, is that the actual number of people working on any game is going to be much higher versus that. Let's see. Koch Media, effective today, has been renamed to PlayOn, which, or Play On, maybe is how you're supposed to pronounce it. It's not a terrible name. Koch Media, in general, is worse. But name changes usually often feel like shuffling the deck chairs of the Titanic, and are an indicator that middle management and upper management have nothing better to do. Usually upper management has nothing better to do. Tencent is reportedly seeking a larger stake in Ubisoft. The Guillemot family, including CEO Yves, owns 15% of the company. This may be the beginning of another hostile takeover attempt for Ubisoft, this time by Tencent instead of Viacom or Vivendi, whichever company it was. That being said, this time around, I'm not sure if Yves Guillemot particularly is up to fighting a hostile takeover, or if it would even really be a hostile takeover in this case, because he may be more than happy to just sell the company and get out. His kids, I believe, his adult children, I think, have already moved to making their own games company, and there is a level of just stink on the Ubisoft name and bad press on the Ubisoft name, deserved or not, enough that he may want to just move over to something that's easier to deal with and easier to manage. Plus, Ubisoft games, if you think about them, have taken a drastic shift in what they used to be. It would be interesting to, I guess, look at their entire discography and see how many times Ubisoft games have significantly changed from what they once were. Because I feel like that probably has happened more than you would think, as far as what kind of games Ubisoft was known for making. Let's see. QuakeCon's 2022 streaming schedule includes Redfall. Last year's show included the surprise release of Quake 25th Anniversary Remaster, according to Video Games Chronicles. Xbox apparently is testing a Game Pass Ultimate Family Plan. Up to 4 players can share a Game Pass Ultimate membership in the new scheme. Okay, that sounds like a good thing, and I'm a little surprised that didn't already exist. You can definitely see that my theory that the players are going to be a little bit more serious and the games are going to be a little bit tougher seems to be playing true today. Of course, there's many factors as to why I could be just kind of struggling today versus other days. We're not seeing any network disconnects, we're not seeing any surrenders yet, so that could be a factor too. Far Cry 6 will be free to play this weekend. The entire game and all of its DLC will be included in the trial. On everything including Stadia. Far Cry 6, I believe, is the one with that most recently came out. Yeah, I'm thinking it is, and very few people played it, and there was no big critical surprise to it. And inherently, that is the problem with Far Cry games anyways, is that they're just the same idea over and over again. Microsoft is freeing up Xbox Series S memory to improve graphical performance. The Xbox's new dev kit update says it frees hundreds of additional megabytes, which you have to assume that means that the memory was being reserved for the operating system or for the CPU previously, or being used by the operating system and the CPU. Now, inherently, this shows that you don't have that thread technology in the Xbox series of consoles, because this is a concept that should be, for the most part, addressable and fixed permanently. If you did have that, I think it's called AMD thread technology, where the RAM is effectively shared and directly accessible both by the CPU and the GPU, which sounds dangerous to say the least, but it's probably not that dangerous, particularly in a console. But yeah, we should be moving towards the idea where even in PCs there is a potential future where you put graphics DDR6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in your computer, and then the computer says, for this application you don't need that much graphics RAM, so we'll use it for the CPU, or vice versa, and it would just dynamically share and allocate whatever needs to be reserved, if anything needs to be reserved. But yeah, I imagine they were just being a little bit conservative. I imagine 100 megabytes, though. Hundreds of megabytes is less than a gigabyte, and when you're talking about less than a gigabyte of graphical RAM, you're approaching a point where it's not even really a big enough number to discuss. If they said hundreds of kilobytes instead of megabytes, that wouldn't even be worth talking about. It could be as low as 200 megabytes. It could be as high as 999 megabytes. But even if that, it would have said about 1 gigabyte in that case. Let's see if this cancels out his strategy. Right. Now this puts me in a weird position, because what this does is, I need to summon this, then I guess toss this, and then activate this, and then I guess we'll toss this. Cut that one in half. Okay. Then we'll do this. And then we'll do this. Then we're on the turn. Moving on, Video Games Chronicles says the Kirby 30th anniversary concert will be streamed online next week. The Tokyo concert will be streamed live on August 11th. Multiversus is getting a big overhaul of its hit detection system, which it sounds like that is late to the party, and it's too late to do that, certainly. The game director says hitboxes and hurtboxes are being studied. Here you can see an example of somebody either being hit and then being knocked back, or somebody being considered as being hit when they really weren't hit, at least visually. A big overhaul, certainly, though. It's not really something you should be announcing for a game that you're trying to say is fairly done. Let's see. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Music Data Mine may have revealed the future DLC circuits. Which, okay, whatever. I don't think you probably care too much about any of that. Like, the tracks will come when the tracks will come, so getting overhyped about Mario Kart DLC seems like a waste of time for everybody. Apparently, Square Enix has reportedly confirmed that it's looking to sell its stake in its studios. The publisher is said to be looking for ways to concentrate its resources on Japanese games, which inherently, yeah, that's what we thought was going to happen here. They, I guess, technically still own the Tomb Raider Lara Croft series. I wouldn't be surprised if this series, whatever this even is, I don't even know what that is, it's also going to be trying to be sold. Wouldn't even be surprised if, like, Nier Automata 2 and whatever this is also tries to be gotten rid of, just so they can focus on new Final Fantasies and releases of old Final Fantasies, because that's clearly the only thing that they even start to pretend like they care about, and arguably they don't even really care about that. Square Enix is just a unique Japanese company in that the Giant Bomb and other mainstream video game journalists will come out right and say yes, they believe it is the Japanese company that is in the wrong and just a bad manager because they've mishandled launches and releases of games over and over and over again. So at a certain point, it's Square Enix as the management that refuses to admit that they are the problem. Which that is fairly unique, although we do also say that for like Activision Blizzard, where Bobby Kotick seems to be fairly assumed to be the problem of Activision Blizzard, and the management of Activision Blizzard seems to be the problem. Yeah, mainstream video game journalists probably would love to blame the management of every games companies, but in many cases that's not the case. Because the games that actually do come out and get released are not awful games. You could arguably make the accusation that, like, EA games are bad because the teams making the games at EA are bad at making games. But even there, we kind of know it's probably EA green lighting and funding the wrong things. Yeah, looks like I'm gonna lose again. Generally speaking, I suppose if Square Enix sells off most of its companies, good riddance. At some point, Square Enix will just become this very small, tight-knit legacy company that's putting out Final Fantasy games and only Final Fantasy games. And at some point, there will be too much budget spent on some Final Fantasy game, and they'll run out of money. They are definitely kind of going the way of Blizzard, where World of Warcraft was their only focus for so long that Blizzard lost StarCraft, really, or Warcraft as a game, or even Diablo as a focus of a game. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says a game called Tower of Fantasy shows off social gameplay ahead of next week's release. This is oddly a game I don't recognize at all. Is this a mobile game? Yeah, Video Games Chronicle's not even good about showing that. Launched globally on PC and mobile on August 11th. Let's see, is this actually going to load and play? So you got motorcycles. It definitely does feel like motorcycles are going to be the big thing for our generation here. Motorcycles and robotic things. And then there's jumping and platforming, and then there's hacking and slashing. And then there's taking snapshots and posing. It does just kind of look like one of those mobile Asian RPGs, Japanese RPG games. Inspired somewhat by Genshin Impact, I'm sure. Apparently a new Sonic Origins update finally fixes the Tails AI issue. Several new sound test codes have also been added to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Which it does seem like not as much of a update. Considering how many other problems people were complaining about as far as just the emulation and the quality of the performance in the emulation of Sonic Origins, and the fact that they eliminated any other options by removing the other previous Sonic games from sale, which really is just a thing. And there's another person that used Max C, thinking that would cancel, and it didn't. Right. So if we did... What I want to try here is something different. Let's see if we can summon this. We'll go through this process. That would be one special summon. Now, because he's played Maxi, he is drawing new cards. Which, okay. We'll let that be. Nope. I either didn't have the right cards to activate more special summons. So, I've done 5 special summons so far. This needs... Nope, it really is your opponent has to special summon things, not you. Okay. So, it doesn't matter how many I would have gone through. That wouldn't have been enough. So, yeah, if he's playing an Exodia deck, that would have worked fairly well for him. Let's see, and then our final Video Games Chronicle article today is EA has revealed the FIFA 23 Match Day experience, more realistic crowds and more. Check that out if you're interested. We will go ahead and start eliminating cards here. Now there's Friday again, so theoretically this would be the point where we would start to see more adult games, but I really do question whether that idea is out. Also, I need to start going through a decent amount of video games that have been released to Steam, at least at the moment, in between Video Games Chronicles and Gematsu articles, even though it would make a little bit more sense to keep all the news somewhat similar. So we do have this game on Steam here called Hot and Lovely Games, which looks like it is just a match 2 card game with some flatter animated elf girls. At a certain point, I would call this an anime style. I wouldn't call it the moe style though. It does look fairly good. Claims to support everything, several different languages and subtitles. So this is more in line with what I'm expecting to kind of see, though. Is more like puzzle games and match games and more anime style instead of 3D CG models, or obviously made by Westerner animation styles that usually look pretty awful. Then we have a shooter in medieval times where you have guns shooting medieval people, which just comes off as an asset flip even if it is a slightly interesting gimmick. Then we have a mobile game port which claims to be English full audio, and yet even in the screenshots you can tell there's Asian writing. Alright. This should now let me bring out this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm thinking this will probably let me banish this. Well, if not, then even if this guy stays on the field, I'm fine. I can cut his life in half. So unless that card can unbanish the card, should still be fine. Let's keep going through games on Steam. Here we have Death Slave, You Need to Master Death, which looks like nothing. We have a game called Chibi Tama, which just looks like a ugly tower defense game. We have Apollo's Adventure, which looks just like maybe a math/adventure game, but it's coming soon. So at that point, I guess we don't put it on the follow list. Here we have a game called Note of Janus, which looks like it is some kind of logic adventure solitaire game. It is out. I'll give it a follow just to see if it might be something. And then I guess at a certain point I do also need to once again have that thought as far as do I need to make more YouTube shorts? And the answer is yes. I need to lower my standards, frankly, fairly low, and just have a ton of YouTube shorts going forward. Like, I'm leaning more towards the idea of potentially going as far as like December 31st ahead in time, which would be like 6 months, which is probably wrong. If anything, I should probably limit it to 6 weeks. That would make more sense than just having a fairly consistent buffer of 6 weeks always. This game, For Another Day, it's just a low polygon survival game of no interest. Hidden in the Dark, it looks like nothing. I don't think I'd ever YouTube short or do a YouTube short on an RPG Maker looking game like that. Physics Playground, again, looks like nothing. Yeah. There are, I suppose, genres of games out there that I might always have a bias against. Alright, well, I guess we'll set this and pretend like that's a trap, and then we'll end the turn. It's messing with my strategy quite a bit, and frankly, I let him mess with my strategy quite a bit when I should have just ended my turn after he played Max C the first time and not let him draw so many cards. Here we have a game called Recipe for Disaster, which there might be something to this simulation game to make it deserve a YouTube short. Another thing certainly with the YouTube shorts is I can leave some of these games once I'm ahead in a bundle and then come back and check to see if they're mixed reviewed or negative reviewed very quickly. Because if they are mixed reviewed or negatively reviewed very quickly, then I can then kind of curate by mob rule instead of showing them. Heavy focus on amazing tower defense game. Tiny Tactics. Yeah, I still don't think that's anything I want to play. Desktop Village Simulator. Doesn't look interesting. A gay furry visual novel. Again, probably a genre I'm not going to bother to put on spotlights, because most of these gay furry stories or furry stories in general are not so much gay stories, but some of them definitely. They feel like they are just pushing a othering of the other people. That's a kind of more modern woke term, but it really does seem like it is just trying to put them on show like a minstrel show than actually serving an actual audience. But it's hard for me to really tell too, because I am just not the audience as far as I'm not looking for gay furry visual novels, and I don't think there's a big enough audience to make a YouTube short around that probably anyways. Like, clearly these YouTube shorts are going to be successful, and thus they are going to tend to lean towards being the most generic of offerings. If I started to show a lot of adult content in any category, it would suffer in views, almost certainly. Here we have one called Nyaruru Fishy Fight, which seems to be a keep it up in the air beat 'em up game a lot of times, but then there's also some platforming here. It's English and Chinese. I guess I'll give it a follow, but again, it feels a little too niche, a little too small audience to be a YouTube short. Then we have like Track and Burn here, which looks like a racing game that doesn't look terrible, but I'm not sure it looks great enough. This one is also free to play and already on my follow list, so I'll just leave it at that. This game is taking forever. Well, I'm taking forever. What's funny here is I might be able to survive. There's something about it only doing half as much damage there, because that should have gotten me a lot closer to failure. Right. This guy's taking forever. We have a game on Steam here called The Past Rhapsody, which looks like garbage. Wilderness Game Stalker VR, North America. Which doesn't look visually polished enough for a VR hunting game. Let's see, Bone Razor Minions. It's a top-down twin stick shooter. May be a little too dark screenshot syndrome for me. Yeah, I'm gonna say no to that one. Egglian. Looks like another platformer. Okay. So what would save the day is putting this on the field and being able to activate this to get at least the 3 on the field, to then get the 4 on the field. Maybe this dragon made stuff really is strategically beating the Zodiac Tri-Brigade decks now, and is the new top tier meta deck. That would be improvement in my opinion. Alright, let's see if we can do this. 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. All I've got to hope for here is that somehow this is going to work. Nope, I've lost. Yeah, this Egglian game doesn't look like anything. Bicycle Rider Simulator. Yeah, there might be something to that. I can see making a YouTube short around that not working. Hearts United. Looks like nothing. Cat Dungeon. Doesn't look like anything. This looks like a troll game. So new to that. Rat Royale. Should just let it. Should just activate the spell, actually. Just activate the spell, I'm gonna lose anyways. I have no idea if removing anything from the graveyard would have affected anything. This Rat Royale as a concept, I think, probably isn't going to appeal to very many people playing as a rat or seeing rats. I just think there's enough people that don't like the looks of rats or don't want to look at rats, even if you're not terrified by them. And then we have Dark Desire 3, which this was the one game that I guess was coming soon, and now it's out. This was this weird game where you have a character here that definitely looks very young or very short, and it felt like there might be some weird implication that you could embrace the desire of engaging in some kind of inappropriateness with an underage character, which honestly in stories like Lolita shouldn't be censored. I can clearly make that argument and statement, and most people would say Lolita as a book shouldn't be censored. Maybe it should be held in behind the counter for age appropriateness, but maybe not even at that, because that is a level of censorship. But there is certainly rules in Steam that don't allow the going through the mental gymnastics and playing with the idea of doing something illegal or doing something inappropriate with an underage character. And inherently many games have been censored for that, even the implication of that. So yeah, I would be, on the other hand, completely irate if Dark Desire 3, being a Western game with 3D models, was allowed to go very deep into the idea of forbidden fruit, as it were, which I don't even know if forbidden fruit is a good term to use there. And then many Japanese, Asian, Eastern games with the moe art style just have the characters looking younger, but then aren't even really dealing with that concept, because that is what is happening, or what seems like what's happening on Steam, is that you'll have characters that are clearly in high school that say they're 18 years old, but they're in that moe art style, so then somebody at Valve says, nope, that looks like they're underage, or that they're clearly in college, or they're clearly out of school and still they're in the moe art style. Let's go through some of the Gematsu articles then. Here we have a game called Hack, launching August 25th for Switch and PC. Yeah, almost assume that it's a hacking hacking game, but it's tagged as a side-scroller Metroidvania platformer. So, actually, no. This might be one of those rare occasions in which this one is actually defeatable by that one. Let's see. Behavior Interactive announces a first-person building and raiding game called Meet Your Maker for basically everything except for the Switch and Stadia. which, okay. Looking at these screenshots, I'm not sure I see anything that really looks that interesting to me. Kind of feels like it's maybe just a more Quake clone, Doom clone, with some crafting elements added on. The game Hooked on You, a Dead by Daylight dating sim, is now available. Date the killers of Dead by Daylight. We already ran into this game on Steam, so Komatsu is kind of late to the party. And it definitely feels like it is a weird side game just to advertise your main game. I don't even think the game costs anything. I think it's free on Steam. So it almost feels like it's a late April Fool's Day joke that turned into a real thing. Which at a certain point, maybe it was going to be an April Fool's Day joke for next April Fool's. And they simply know that their Dead by Daylight's not going to be that successful or even supported as much by next April Fool's. Yeah, at a certain level, you do kind of wonder if that's not an indication that they don't plan for Dead by Daylight to be a game people are playing by next April. Otherwise, you would have just held it for an April Fool's Day thing. Particularly if it's free. If it actually is costing money, then I have to make the accusation that this is a desperate need for extra cash. So either way, I'm cynical about it as a concept. Where there is definitely the possibility they just thought it was funny, or that people would find it funny or entertaining. Alright. See if we can get this to work in our favor. Probably need to stop putting this in the extra monster zone. Yeah. If I just always placed it here, it's probably better. Right, end the turn. Let's see, Komatsu says Behavior Interactive and Lunark Studio announced an open world multiplayer puzzle game called Project S for PC. The idea of an open world puzzle game seems weird, particularly multiplayer, because you basically would have to have a generator that's just constantly making puzzles. And then you have a very basic flat puzzle screen here, and then you have a whole bunch of other stuff in the open world. So it almost feels like it's going to be a disconnected system. It could be, however, more of the idea of a single player instance, and then you can bring in your friends to help you with the puzzles. And that's not a terrible idea. We've seen that kind of happen. It could also be that there are puzzles that require multiple players, and that could be another factor, certainly. And yeah, that could definitely cause a different role that occur. Right. The concept of multiplayer solving puzzles It's not a terrible concept. See, however, now detaching that and then reattaching that's not gonna get me anywhere. And special summoning this here. Then go ahead and activate that and destroy that. Interesting, he's activating his effect. Which potentially would let me activate this effect, but I don't see a real reason to activate that effect. Right, well, end the turn. That's all I can do. Yeah, let's look at this blurred out video and see what Project S actually looks like. So you have islands in the sky, a lot of variety. It's more than just a simple asset flip. Now with the Witness you had this issue where any part of the world may very well have been a part of the puzzle, whereas here it definitely feels like somebody has taken an open world game and said, hey, we don't want to program the AI, we don't want to have enemies, so instead let's just have cubes floating around and solve them as puzzles. And it'll be interesting to see if perhaps solving the puzzles actually affects the overworld much at all. The problem here too is the open world could be fairly small. The Witness Island, for instance, was a fairly small open world, as it were. And the number of puzzles could be fairly small, but it's an interesting idea for this Project S. We have a Neo's RKH on the chat saying subdued, so I'll respond in kind and say hello. Our next Game article says the Rumblefish 2 launches this winter for basically everything except for Stadia, which just looks like a fighting game with a collection of characters, none of which I recognize, so, and I don't recognize the name the Rumblefish either. So it seems like this may be a new series entry of potentially relevant fighting games. Maybe, maybe not. There's a lot of high quality demand certainly in fighting games, and it is a lot of work to make a good fighting game compared to failing and making a bad fighting game. Let's see, Neo Geo Pocket Color Selection Volume 2 has been announced, which will include SNK Gals Fighters and looks like mostly Neo Geo Pocket games that I'm fairly certain nobody really played, particularly in the West, and Neo Geo Pocket being kind of a competitor to the Game Boy Color, arguably not that good of games, not that long of games. Like Gals Fighters may have only 4 or 8 characters in it and not be that fast as far as how it plays. Not only am I not winning here, I am taking a long time to not win. People are taking things fairly serious here. And there we just got demoted to a lower rank. Let's take that as potentially a indicator to maybe give up for the day. Well, since these no longer say ranked, I'm just assuming that I would have been able to accomplish all of this playing unranked. Yeah, and at the very least, I should make a solo episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I should get this daily quest done early and not sit on it for 25 days. As far as lifetime progress, those numbers are just going to slowly creep up. I feel like the 40 million campaign thing should go away at this point. They've had several updates, and that's still sitting around. Let's see, do we have new solo stuff? They've been fairly decent about adding new solo stuff. Also, let's see, is there a real reason to go to a casual match and do anything here? So you have like the standard icon here. But let's see. If I was to just say show me only forbidden cards. Seems like the forbidden cards are still the same forbidden cards. So this idea of standard may in general, the standard forbidden limited list will be used, but this may change depending on ongoing events. We appreciate your understanding. So yeah, they are opening the door to making decks that don't use the standard forbidden list. But actually going into a duel seems like it's probably just a waste of time. This switch and confirmation, for activation confirmation, switch and hold, I did not see this button. Activation ordering, it's not that useful. Showing card descriptions being on, I think is fine. Let's see, summon cut-ins. Again, only one time are the only options. So it's not saving you a lot of time if you still have to watch one summon cut-in. So there's definitely room with this update. They're showing where some other updates should happen. Alright, let's kind of rush and try and wrap this up because this is going to just go late. Gamatsu says Scar of the Doll remake launches August 18th in Japan, selling for about $15, 1,500 yen, which we could jump through this, but I really don't even have time for that. It's obviously just going to be a horror visual novel. The animation doesn't look terrible by any means, but then you do have a full black screen here as a picture, which shows that it's somewhat limited in its animation budget. The Legend of Crimson Heroes Karen no Kisekai 2 Crimson Sin details more characters. Check that out if you're interested. I think that's, at this point, not something I care about. as far as specific character reveals for any game. Tactics Ogre Reborn has been announced for the PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC, due out November 11th. This is, I assume, a remake of an older game called Tactics Ogre, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Square Enix game. Yep. Square Enix again, heavily focusing on old JRPGs and JRPGs in general. This is a strategic tactical placement RPG. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak digital event has been set for August 9th. I imagine they'll announce some small thing. A fantasy raising simulator game called Layerland Story for Switch and PC is coming to the West. Raising simulation game gets an English release via P-Cube. The Princess Maker series is most notably known for being the daughter raising simulator game out there. Although, if they're calling this a raising simulator in general, you might actually be playing with a potential son raising simulator, which I don't think I've ever seen a game like that where you could raise a son. There's just an assumption, certainly, of the Japanese that make these raising simulators, and even at that, this is a particularly niche type of game where there's really only 3 series I even know of that have gone in that direction. But I tend to assume that playing as a father raising a daughter is more interesting than playing as a father raising a son, or playing as a mother raising a daughter or son. And then you also have kind of this anime issue, certainly, where anime people do not crack, to parody the black don't crack phrase, in the sense that this guy is supposed to be in his like 30s or late 20s, and he's raising a daughter who also looks like she's somewhere in her late 20s, where the numbers just would not add up. And I imagine the character will get older and slightly change in appearance as the game goes on. Yeah, there should be more of these simulators, but they also tend to come off as somewhat creepy, at least voyeuristic on some level, and they tend not to sell because there's just such a niche to it. You'd think what you would want to do is kind of have that concept of raising a child as a gameplay secondary or third mechanic. That way you can have more of an experience there, where you have like more of an action fighting game and you're raising a child as a side gameplay mechanic. Gametsu has the software sales, with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 topping the charts this week, and Digimon Survive for the Switch topping the second place spot, and then Switch holding all spots until Gran Turismo 7 in the 6th spot, and then the Switch holding all spots until the 12th spot for Digimon Survive. I mean, really, when you look at the percentages here, it's like a 5-to-1 ratio for Switch games being successful compared to one PlayStation 4 game, PlayStation 5 not even really selling at all. Anonymous Code being new, getting the 16th spot for Switch and the 22nd spot for the PS4. Grim Grimoire Once More doing pretty poorly, though, in the 24th spot. And Legend of Heroes Kira no Kisekai for PS5 launching in the absolute bottom. It was a good week, however, for hardware sales, and there definitely feels like there's not much of a connection between buying hardware and software anymore, in that the OLED of the model of the Switch sold 42,000 and the PlayStation 5 sold 36,000, where in previous weeks the PlayStation 5 was selling like 1,000, 2,000, somewhere in that range. And I think that was just part shortages, really. And we are consistently seeing the Xbox Series X doing better in its sales numbers than it ever has before, perhaps because of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 shortages. Only 14 units of the PlayStation 4 even sold, so it's pretty much impossible to find a PlayStation 4. Gametsu says Koch Media rebrands as PlayOn, putting Play for first, which we already talked about that. Sherlock Holmes The Awakened remake has a reveal trailer and a Kickstarter campaign launched. It's been a long time since we've seen any game developer try to use Kickstarter. Kickstarter as a concept is fairly dead. Most people got burned on it, didn't get their products delivered, or got inferior quality products for what they had ordered, and the massive amount of delays, whether you got something or not, were always just unacceptable to an average person who would want to invest in anything. Fig, the video game focused spin-off or competitor, not spin-off, to Kickstarter, also totally silent, totally radio silent. Like, I assume Fig still exists, but I have not heard anybody talk about any new games being launched on it or anybody being interested in it. And that's kind of all good things, because the idea of Kickstarter and Fig and any like crowdfunding as a concept was pretty much just a scam. The only thing I could say is crowdfunding for like charities or crowdfunding for very local specific charitable cases, people that needed help, makes a lot of sense. But when you start to include business in it, just capitalism and business corrupts incredibly fast in crowdfunding, faster than most things that capitalism corrupts. A game called Despot's Game launches September 15th. The PC version of Despotism 3K is free between August 4th and August 7th. Yeah, I saw this on slickdeals.net and downloaded the game. It seems to be a brief look at it. The game seemed like it was a like hell simulator type thing where you're like torturing people. But maybe I was wrong about that. Am I thinking of a different game? I think I'm thinking of a different game. Yeah. This isn't the game that's free. Yeah, Despotism 3K. It's a different game. Yeah. This is the one where you use the people to run your hamster wheels and torture them and such. So, Despot's Game versus Despotism 3K are very different types of games. And this definitely isn't a game that I'd probably spend a lot of money on. Right now it's free, certainly. But if this was $4 or $5, I would say no. And you can see that in the last 30 days, you're getting like a 68% review, whereas over its lifetime, it's 80% positive, which that almost certainly comes from just people getting the game for free and just not being that interested in what they have to offer. And even as like a use humans to run your hamster wheel / torture people game, it doesn't really feel like there is that much of a experience here, because it seems to all kind of just stay on this one screen. And so that doesn't really feel like much of a game. Let's see, a Crypt of the Necrodancer DLC Synchrony is now available in early access on PC, which I wasn't really expecting there to be any more Crypt of the Necrodancer content. Problems here certainly is I still have no rhythm, so I wouldn't really want to play Crypt of the Necrodancer at all. That's a Gematsu article. Again, we're still going through those. And then Rift of the Necrodancer has been announced, which is a standalone rhythm game in the Necrodancer universe. And this is, I guess, all they have to show at the moment. Let's see, a game called Heaven Burns Red for PC launches August 10th in Japan. It's an RPG game in 4K, which is an interesting thought, certainly. We can look at it on Steam. Yep, but it's Japanese only. Definitely feels like a game that can benefit from going to 4K, whereas most visual novels, if you had 4K renders, would look a little bit prettier in these types of scenes, but there's not a ton more you can do. You're not really going to try and zoom out and show more characters in most scenes. You are still going to mostly have just face-on-face conversations like this. But in the actual gameplay, in the actual RPG experience, 4K definitely could benefit. Although, also, you're really painting yourself into a dangerous corner thinking about playing a 4K Japanese-made game, because I doubt the programmers of Japanese RPGs or Japanese games in general have a ton of experience making 4K games, and they do have kind of a history of having some slightly buggy games. So you could have certainly a nightmare scenario where it says it supports 4K, but it just looks and plays super framey and super bad. Let's see. Gematsu says Made in Abyss Binary Star Falling into Darkness details the game original story character appearances and the notebook. Here you can see some of the brutality in the Made of the Abyss series of just people being either killed or nearly killed, despite the animation style making it look like it's supposed to be kid friendly. These characters, I think, are totally new characters, whereas these two characters are from the actual anime. This may be a new character, or that may be in the anime, I don't know. This might be a new character again. That may be a new character, it's hard to tell. In a lot of ways, it feels like you have to spend a lot of effort to turn Made in Abyss into a standard adventure RPG game, and they've done that, or they're trying to do that, when the story is so unique that it really shouldn't have a video game based off of it, in my opinion. Let's see. Gematsu says the Rumblefish 2 has a Famitsu video interview with Hiroyuki Kawano and Mitsuhiro Tanaka, which I guess you could check that out if you're interested. Inti Creates has announced a 2D action platformer called Grim Guardians Demon Purge for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Which, yeah, starting to see a little bit more announcements for games again. So it almost feels like there is a gap of 2 or 3 weeks between the E3 events and then getting back towards, we need to start building hype towards a Black Friday, Christmas sales. And that might just be Golden Week in Japan, particularly when there's a gap of announcements where they have a whole bunch of holidays in 1 week. Soul Hackers 2 has its 4th trailer if you want to check that out. This does look like a different collection of like bad guy characters that they're emphasizing now, because I don't recognize any of these from the previous Soul Hackers announcements. And then Dengen Entertainment is going to publish a Taiwan set psychological thriller called Recall Empty Wishes for PC, due out Q2 of 2023. Which, okay. This looks very, very nicely animated in the background there. But then you have this that's, I don't know. You probably would call this chibi or a tall chibi art style. I don't even know what you would call that. Stretched out chibi. And that seems to be the vast majority of how the game looks, is with this stretched out chibi art style. Like every other screenshot they have to show here looks pretty awful. These portrait pictures don't look terrible, but they don't look great either. So yeah, that's at least not visually particularly interesting. Alright, let's figure out where we were with the games we were going to spotlight. I think we were here with City Limits. City Limits looks like it's a 2048 game. I'm going to put it on the fall list, but I'm not going to spotlight it because it doesn't have anything amazing here. Now, I could somewhat unfairly choose to spotlight hidden object games. And that would give me one more video. Maybe there is a thought to that. Certainly. For people uninterested in hidden object games, they're not offensive, but you could run into some of them, certainly. For people who are interested in hidden object games, you can certainly find them. Like, I personally have just developed a bias to be uninterested in hidden object games. So that is something I'm going to think about. I'm not going to put it on the fall list because I don't personally care about hidden object games, but I will have to think if I start to get really desperate. Should I should I start to highlight that? Next we have a game called Zapping Bygone on Steam. Notice that you have this like banner art here for some kind of sale or some kind of highlight. Steam recently said you couldn't put like advertisements on these pictures here for the thumbnail or the screenshots, but they had already, for the previous year at least, probably 2 or 3 years, introduced the upper banner advertisements. So in a lot of ways, what could have been what they were putting over in this art as far as creator reviews and parts of sales has just potentially been shifted either up here or down into the description or even down here into the awards. And so it's not super surprising that they told them to knock it off with putting awards and sales in the default thumbnail when they already had accommodated them for better, more logical locations. Now, as far as actually playing this game, I'll give it a follow, but I suspect no. We have about 30 more games to look at. Live Maze. Now, honestly, I don't even really expect to see any more adult games. I'd be surprised if I see more than 2. Yep, there's one. MILF Toys 3, a match card game with what I would call an 80s, 70s anime style, which I guess I should just call it that. Like Western animation style there, or how people would have been drawn in anime in the 80s and 70s, where they are much more realistic. I guess realistic animation style while still being flat 2D and colorful and having different color hair might make sense. But yeah, MILF Toys 3 here seems to be pretty much 100% lesbian action and not really a lot here confirming that everybody here is a mother. You just have to assume that. A lot of big boobs, a lot of big butts. And that's pretty much it. Sells for 59 cents. Claims to support every language. Well, I guess I definitely shot myself in the foot and tempted fate by saying I didn't expect to see any more adult games. Here we have a match 2 polyprimates game of no interest. First date, last date is a full motion video game that's coming soon. I'll wait till it actually comes out. Bullet chess looks like absolute garbage. Under the Moon might be something. Probably isn't. Put that on the fall list. Pink Explorer. It's just another platformer. I really don't have a lot of desire to spotlight a lot of platforming games. Project Swap here. Looks like an asset flip shooter. Rogueline. But yeah, I do suspect that if there are going to be adult games released over the weekend, a large number of them, it'll be later in the weekend. Also, I still have yet to adjust the settings to start looking at actual Japanese only adult games that might exist. So my information and data is still pretty garbage. Here we have an adult game called Magic Click, which looks like it is just a clicker game with a slightly animated character. And I assume at some point it might unlock some CGs. Here you have some bondage, sadomasochism as a concept. It's not really the worst idea, certainly, to make a clicker around adult games, particularly if you could just have most of the game automate itself. It's probably better than the match 2 games. That, like, the only reason there is match 2 elements in most adult games is because they are just stretching for time, which getting past that 2-hour no refunds, no questions asked point is probably the goal for a lot of these adult games, or getting past at least a level of time that people feel satisfied. This game looks like garbage. Here we have another adult game called House of Witches. Man, I really did shoot myself in the foot saying that. And this time it is somewhat Harry Potter-esque witches, although I wouldn't even really go as far as to say Harry Potter-esque. I'd say it's more just what witches often were depicted on as previous Harry Potter. CG characters, girl on girl action, it seems like. Again, it's another one of these games that has straight up pornography in the screenshots, which I still don't really agree with as far as Steam doing that, but it is hidden behind the adults only section, so only me and a small percentage of people are actually even seeing the games at all. This game looks like nothing. Let's see, Lies in Ruka's Magical Bag. So this is an RPG game. There might be something to this. It's being published by Sekai Project. I'll give it a follow, but again, no spotlight. And then Miko no Kanta, Curious Tales of Oguni Shrine Cycles. Again, feels like a slightly older anime visual novel, slightly older style. 90s animation style, I'd say. I wish I had better terms for these, and these meant something more. Like, it would be nice if there was like an infographic I could bring up, and I'm sure somebody somewhere has done that, but I haven't seen it nor gone looking for it. Here we have a game called Drain Runner, which looks like garbage. Then that's going to leave us with our GameDeveloper.com articles. See, Nintendo literally said they weren't going to come out with new hardware, so them saying a new Switch console seems unlikely for 2022 is redundant. Apparently, games contributed strongly to Warner Brothers Discovery's quarterly financials. Discovery has effectively acquired Warner Brothers, and they already owned HBO, and there's, I think it's been confirmed, if not major speculation, that there will be a Discovery Plus type experience that happens. And we've seen a lot of things canceled. We saw a $90 million Batgirl a movie shelved and not put out. As far as video games on Warner Brothers, though, they got the new Lego Star Wars saga released, and then there was the delay on the Golem game. So, one success and one failure. I don't know if there's any other WB games that have come out yet. The new Batman Arkham Knights, whatever it's called, the Batman game from the Arkham Asylum series that's not going to have Batman in it. It seems like, and instead has 3 Robins and Batgirl. It looks like more of the same, so I'm not expecting anything great from that. So I don't really know if there's any big games coming out between now and the end of the year to be interested in or keep an eye on. Apparently Jam City has laid off 100 plus developers, impacting 17% of its total staff, according to GameDeveloper.com. I should mention this, I suppose. I was halfway through setting up a Raspberry Pi, and I left it on its default login stuff information, and I have seen it now reboot several times, which makes me fairly much, just for safety's sake, assume that somebody has hacked into it immediately, and I will have to reinstall the code. I'll log into it and see if there's a log that maybe gives me a different explanation, but even those logs could have been faked if somebody's hacked into it with the default password. So that is definitely a lesson in don't set something up and then leave it for a couple of days. But inherently, me working on the Raspberry Pi is me not making footage, so I may just leave it for a little bit longer and just unplug it. Back to video game news. Microsoft is testing what sounds an awful lot like a Xbox Pass family plan. I don't know what else you would call it. I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and said friends and family plan in particular, and tried not to just limit it to single households or families. And then Microsoft has better optimized memory allocation for the Xbox Series S developers. Oddly, not for the Series X, so that optimization probably already existed for the Series X. It may very well have been a false limitation to begin with. And then researchers claim that Belgium's loot box ban is ineffective. Belgium's law against loot boxes has been in effect for 4 years, and researcher Leon Y. Zio alleges that it isn't as powerful a law as it originally seemed. Which I'm not sure if that means that this guy is pushing for a stronger law, or if this guy is pushing for giving up on the law. But yeah, inherently you're not going to. Belgium is not going to have enough economic power to change the loot box problem on its own, but it is a step in the right direction. Deck 9 has confirmed that the Life is Strange series won't return to an episodic model created by Dueled. The Life is Strange franchise was originally an episodic success, but after 2021's Life is Strange True Colors, future games will be complete releases. Which, good. Like, in general, the idea of episodic game releases have fallen to the wayside and people have given up on that. Telltale, certainly a failure in pushing the idea of episodic releases, and episodic is frankly just promising too much when game companies really can't deliver on those promises. It's better just to have a complete story and a complete game, or something close to a complete game, on day one of launch. It's weird to limit people to have to take breaks while playing a video game. Even Netflix, with their let's release the entire season at once model, shows that that is what most people at least think they want. Very rarely are people enjoying the idea of having to wait a week to see the next episode, even if that changes how people ingest or understand the events. Even watching Sandman on Netflix, that's definitely something I noticed, is that I'm getting distracted after the third episode or so, and I'm not paying enough attention to it like I should. And really, for the Sandman series, you should be paying attention to every single thing on screen. And then our final GameDeveloper.com article we have is Square Enix eyeing selling its stakes in its remaining Western studios. Square Enix plans to let other companies buy stake in its Western studios and plans to use the money for those sales to help focus resources on its many Japanese games, which arguably I wouldn't even say they have that many Japanese games when you look at it by series compared to just the number of Final Fantasy games in particular. Alright, so then we've got some follow list cleanup here. So the thing about the Looker here is it's not a parody. It's not a competitor to the Witness. It's a parody of the Witness. It's also free at this point, so me having it on the follow list doesn't matter. I should just add it to my add it to my account now. I feel like this game was either in early access or wasn't out. It is important, I think, to slightly spoil to say that at a certain point you just break out of doing the puzzles altogether, and this probably is a very short experience. Now the problem here is that there's not a lot of good reason to go back and play The Witness a second time after you've done everything and collected everything. So this creates a weird situation where you are well, even in the trailer it shows how you're basically breaking out of the concept of the game. So yeah, by the time this game had come out, unless you just hadn't played The Witness, playing this game as a parody of this game doesn't make a lot of sense. And going back and playing the game, The Witness, a second time doesn't really make any sense. So it does put you in this weird position. Next we have The Longest Road on Earth, which looks weird, as it almost feels like it's a visual novel. very positive. It's got more than 30 reviews, so I'll put it on the wish list. It is kind of a weird looking game though, so I don't know when I'd specifically pick to play something like that. Also, I would say at this point, if I'm going to make less and less content, playing weird games becomes less realistic. Here we have a game that is barely positive. Well, it's totally positively reviewed, but barely has enough reviews. But it does have over 30, and that has been my number to beat up until this point. Also, I would say this gun here is the exact same model of another gun, which both of those guns were probably Unity Store, Unreal Engine Store assets. So it's not surprising that you'd see two guns that are somewhat similar. The rest of the gameplay mechanics seem to be different. Not as much visual polish on a game like this that I'd like to see, but that's it. And its developer David Shaw hasn't made anything else, but he put his name on the game, which I can't blame somebody for doing that, really. Here we have a game called The Lizardtarian, which I'll give more time to. Doesn't quite have 30 reviews, and even at that, its reviews are borderline. A free-to-play game, again, makes it hard to actually play games like that when you can just tell people to go check it out. This game is in early access and needs more time. Little red line. Is it out of early access? Yes, it's again another weird one. Hey, we can just put on the wish list. A lot of games we're seeing now too are like free to play. So if I guess I was desperate and just couldn't afford games, I probably have a fairly long list of free to play games I could show. Here we have a game called The List, which looks a lot like Her Story, and it is rated very positively, so we can put that on the wish list. If anything, this may just go and show that Her Story could have been done multiple times. You could have just had different actors doing the same different narratives for different interviews. You could frankly make a whole TV series off of something like that, where you're just having a entire interview take 22 minutes, and maybe that'd get a little boring, but I bet you could pull it off. I guess this is an escape the room horror game. It's from 2019. It's early access. Honestly, at this point I probably should dump it, but it does kind of look somewhat good. It's probably an abandoned game though. On the other hand, this one, The Light at the End of the Ocean, I think we pretty much have to abandon. 67 SteamDB review, and no reviews on Steam. And I would say the art style looks different, but not particularly great, even in the differentness. Legend of Carl is a very hack and slash game, much more actiony than any of the other games we've looked at today. Mostly positive early access 2021. I guess I will give that more time. And then Legend of Heroes Kira no Kisikai apparently does not support English, and it came out. So I don't know if... No, it's Zero no Kisikai, not Hero no Kisikai. So this is probably a spin-off game that they didn't bother to translate to English. I'll leave that, I guess, on the fall list. And then I will just very quickly scroll through my Twitter feed, and then that'll be it for this week. I hopefully will gain some ambition and actually accomplish something over the weekend. I don't have any plans on really getting back to Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, yeah, that's going to be weird, certainly getting back to that when I do. And that is part of the problem, certainly, of trying to play 2 or 3 games at the same time, is it just does not work. But yeah, I hopefully will get more ambitious and actually accomplish more. Yeah, scrolling down here, we only went 2 hours and 30 minutes today in the stream, so I don't really have to scroll that far down into my Twitter feed. PAX West has a mobile app available now, if anybody cares about that. I imagine people going to PAX West would be told about it anyways. But yeah, there's not going to be a live announcements on a Friday anyways. I guess we can end here by opening a tin pack, since I forgot to do that. Let's see, did we get any ultra rares? No, we just got a super rare. Let's open another tin pack and then we'll call it a day, because there is no other new news. More cards, yay. That didn't feel like there was really a lot of... Another super rare. Yeah, we're getting, I would say, maybe closer to 45% new cards. The number does seem to be going down, which at a certain point I think that probably just has to happen. This is the card over here, where in the anime, each of these characters had these Millennium, kind of like Millennium items, but not Millennium items. But they were also characters in the cards that came out of the cards, I think. So, like, it was something that they threw out there as an idea and then didn't really do anything with it after that one episode. Yeah, going back and introducing new Millennium items is probably not the right move for Yu-Gi-Oh! In their desire to go in different directions. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube. Click the notification bell, get all notifications if you want. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.